Hey, welcome to Hear Said. I'm Paul,
And I'm Patrick.
and today we're going to be talking about Watchmen and maybe a couple of other that's Zack Snyder goodness movies.
We're Snyder fans, but we're not Snyder loonies. I just want to get that out there because being a Snyder fan has been difficult ever since people lost their mind and started screaming at other people on the internet about it. I'd like to call us what we now have to maybe be known as normal or casual Snyder fans who respect somebody's work and are not ready to physically hurt anybody else over it.
Snyder moderates.
There you go. I like that.
That seems way more positive than what we're probably going to get from the from the community. So yeah, today we're going to be talking about the Watchmen, which is the famous, which is Snyder version of the graphic novel Watchmen. That is the last time that you're probably going to hear us about the graphic novel, because we want to keep those two separate. If your biggest complaint about Watchmen is that it is a graphic novel first, this isn't the video for you. We're just talking about the movie, kind of thing. So
I'd like to say thank you for that, Paul, because Paul knows that one of my biggest gripes about when people say, oh, I didn't like Watchmen, or complaining about, oh, Watchmen's the worst or second worst Snyder movie, they usually bring up that it deviated from source material, or this was so much better. There's not enough time in our lives to have any more conversations about movies where someone says the book was better. Because if it was, let's talk about the book instead. They're two separate things.
yep. And if you do want to hear us on our whole approach about source material stuff, there is a video about that already.
Oh, we're getting good at this. It'll be linked up above.
Oh, okay. I see what you did there.
Paul, what are we going to be talking about the Watchmen specifically? Because if you haven't seen it, we're going to be telling you that you should at some point. But if you have seen it and you have opinions and feelings, you may not agree with everything we're about to say.
Yeah, that would be a good instance of, yeah. So we are fans of this movie, and we're going to focus on the positive things that we think are really good, which will either annoy you or make you watch the film. So
Paul, what's good about The Watchmen?
So
For me, I can easily say most things are good about Watchmen. Pretty much. You name a metric that you would measure a movie on, and I'll give it a relatively high score.
let's go for characters. So
Oh, yeah, for sure.
yeah, characters are really good.
I think it's credit to the story itself, and obviously the credit has to go to the original material, blah, 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 blah. But it's a credit to the movie itself that you actually get a feel for the different characters. Like the portrayal on screen, not just the writing. It really gives all the different characters that you have to have a vested interest in. It gives you a feeling for who they are. There's arcs in the story, but I think there's a definite sense that nobody that you need to know is overlooked.
Yeah, I think the great thing about the movie is that it gives you such a good cross reference of a few different types of superheroes. Kind of thing. It gives you it gives you essentially the vigilante kind of detective, and then it gives you the vigilante kind of I guess more actiony type. So I guess I would put it as the vigilante Sherlock and the vigilante which is Zorro would probably be my best kind of thing. That being essentially Night Owl and Rorschach's. It also gives you a good, strong female character in it, which is who stands on her own 2 feet in the sense of she's just as badass as everybody else. She probably on her Silk Spectre. I would say that out of Wonder Woman and Hawk Girl and stuff from the DC universe specifically, she stands with them as kind of strong female characters for a good reason kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think it's worth calling out. These are all because they're masked heroes or caped vigilantes or whatever way. They're not actually. There's only one superhero in the whole bunch, which I think is the other thing that sets this apart as far as the story goes. But it's also one of those things that sets off the balance and dynamic with the characters, because you're about to hit Ozymandias, and that's Paul and everybody out there. I'm using this as a way to talk to my friend Paul about Watchmen, because we've avoided talking about it in depth because we knew someday we would do a video.
Yeah.
And Ozymandias is the one that crosses so many boundaries for me. Being the smartest man alive and also being incredibly fast. Is he a superhero? Or is he just the ultimate masked vigilante?
Yeah, see, Ozymandias is an interesting one because he's the full package of a lot of superheroes that we know of. So he's like the Batman, the Iron Man, and then like the, I guess, like Captain America type kind of character, like the pinnacle of physical perfection that a human can get to. And then he's also like hyper intelligent, and as you said, he's hyper fast. Yeah, he's an interesting one because he's the balance of power between the characters shifts with him being on the side of kind of, I guess, the normal human beings compared to Dr. Manhattan, who is the superhero. Because then you've got the comedian who doesn't come into it fully in the kind of overall story, but is you see him a lot more in flashbacks, and he seems to be also like quite at the pinnacle of kind of human conditioning or human physical kind of condition.
Yeah.
So it's an issue, but he doesn't have the other elements of which Ozymandias has. Yeah. So you got this great lineup. Sorry, you got this great lineup of characters that kind of go from, you know, kind of just a normal vigilante detective who's quite good at fighting to Ozymandias, who's literally like the prime kind of evolution of man before they actually get like, you know, superpowers. And then you got Dr. Manhattan, who is that.
Yeah. So there's definitely a spectrum there. And as far as Silk Spectre 2 or Young Miss Jupiter goes, here's the thing. Strong female character, yes, she's actually given a character, which is important. And I do like the fact that they're so blatant about calling out the, oh my God, how ridiculous is the costume? How ridiculous is it? Because that's, let's face it, of all the superhero comic book traditionally tropes, why is everybody wearing pants except for whoever the woman is? Because obviously they could never end up with grazed knees when everybody else is wearing full body armor, and they're like, well, all I need is the bikini to be armored. Kevlar bikini, that's all I need. So there is that. But I think it's kind of cool. Like you mentioned, you've got the detective, the dark loon, which is Rorschach. You've got, you know, the Bruce Wayne billionaire with great reactions, smartest man on earth, mashup of everybody. But the big hitter, Dr. Manhattan, there aren't many like him. And I really like that. I think Dr. Manhattan is what sets this all off.
Yeah, they've given him, that character is quite interesting because they've essentially given him like everything. He has all the powers, flight, invulnerability, able to just destroy things with a look, kind of thing. Able to grow, make himself large. Like he has every superpower you could possibly think of, which makes him stand apart to like Superman and a couple of other ones. But he's also entirely seemingly uncaring, which is one of the most interesting personality traits you could give essentially your version of Superman within your universe.
And it's earned, though, and it's not, and that's the thing I like about the Dr. Manhattan character. It's not that he is just uncaring. It's that he's become uncaring, or not even uncaring. He's become what he is. In a literal sense of he isn't part of that world anymore. And, you know, the dialogue and story as the movie goes on completely sets this all up, that he's becoming more and more detached. And that's why maybe he could be a threat. And I love that. I love the idea that there's an honesty to, well, here's what it would be if all of a sudden you could see your own past and future all at once. Your abilities, like you've just said, are off the charts, but you're not human anymore. You're not a superhuman. You're something else. And how much connection will you remain having? How much objectivity will you have, or how much will objectivity pull you away from the idea of keeping that humanity as an important thing? So I like that he's a study into, is humanity actually important in a character? It's kind of like, you know, people say, do you need religion to be good? well, this is one of those things. Do you need humanity to be feeling?
Yeah, like
You,
it's such
you don't get that with many.
no, like that's the thing is he's an interesting I think the really good thing that they did with him was like, you know, which is once again from the source material, but like the good thing for his character is that he's actually a scientist originally, which means that that logical thinking and stuff like that, and exploratory into like kind of his powers and stuff like that is so methodical that it slowly leaks into his personality and his like detachment from humanity. But it's also a great kind of example of other superhero kind of characters within other universes. Like how does Superman in any way connect with humanity, since he one isn't actually from humanity, and second is so strong? Like it's an interesting kind of thing of looking at the two as we're looking at the middle road to the conditioning of someone with those kind of powers, because he's not from the boys or anything like that. Like he's not what you say a Homelander or anything like that, but he's also not Superman. He's kind of a weird kind of middle ground one where he is more powerful than probably both of them combined, but he's slowly stepping away from his humanity, which is just such an instead of focusing on what he can do, it focuses on what problems he has with those powers.
Yeah,
I think, which is such an interesting character story arc for a superhero.
And bringing up the story itself, the fact that you know, in this movie, his existence is something that drives the story forward. His sheer existence is a plot point, because what do you do when you have an unbelievably powerful being? And like you say, it does call back or call into light all of the other kind of superhero properties that we've ever watched, read, listened to, whatever it might be. What do you know? Superman exists and he's American. Like it's one of those kind of, okay, well, there's a political side to this. There's is he still connected to humanity from his point of view, but then also the threat from our point of view as humanity going, the really powerful being is becoming more of a being and less of a dude. So could he end up ending us all? And the fact that the story uses that to great effect, not just to drive itself along, but in the end and hey, spoiler warning, anybody watching this should know by now that they don't want the whole movie's about to be spoiled at some stage here, so you've been warned. You cannot be in a position where somebody like that isn't making a difference to the world. Now, is that a positive difference? Is it a negative difference? Or even just by existing and sitting in a chair somewhere, causing people fear, anxiety, or hope?
Yes,
it's pretty awesome. And I strayed away from just completely giving away the end there, but I've decided that was stupid. Yeah, the fact that he is completely what enables the crescendo, the end of this movie to be.
Yeah, like the geopolitical ramifications of essentially having the most powerful being on the planet being on your side, especially during the period in which it's set, an alternative 1960s. Like it's so good that they go into that. The fact is that during the nuclear age, not only do they have nuclear bombs, they also have Dr. Manhattan, who literally can like vaporize an entire army with just a feeling.
Yeah,
you know, and it's so good to see, you know, America and the USSR essentially facing off with each other. Like they open with the atomic clock, the doom clock essentially being like, you know,
moving to 5 minutes to midnight.
Yeah, kind of thing. And it's so good because it's such a good kind of like, well, if there was superheroes like Dr. Manhattan, you know, in certain regions, that's exactly what it would be. They would be treated like nuclear weapons, especially as powerful as Dr. Manhattan. So it's good to see him on the stage of always being kind of like a political kind of item, like as in like America's just like, not only Russia can we nuke you, Dr. Manhattan will just destroy all your nukes before they get anywhere near us. Ha 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 ha. You know, but it's
Which,
So
then accelerates the Cold War to a point where, well, if we have enough of them, can he? And
yeah,
now we're
like
back into a stage of actual possible danger.
well, it's also like calling the bluff kind of thing going on. Not like that they're getting the superpowers are essentially because like America is like so in this alternate universe is so pushed towards imperialism and stuff like that because they have Dr. Manhattan that like they feel slightly invincible, and
Yeah.
it's in the line that the comedian says, which is the American dream came true
Yeah.
and you're living in it, is so good in the sense that like we are the most powerful nation on the planet, and we are like flaunting that a bit. That when one country is just like, well, we might be like a step down from you, but we can still nuke you,
And
kind of thing. It's
for anybody who doesn't remember, the time span that the movie is set over is from 60s into it's 1984, where you've had Nixon is president at that stage for 5 terms and is running for a 6th, I think. So it's number one, Watergate didn't happen in the way that it happened in this alternate universe has a successful Nixon. It has a different ending to the Vietnam War. There's a lot of commentary, a massive amount of commentary in the story about, the comedian obviously says it out loud. When they won in Vietnam, as evil as he was being at the time, he still made the point, well, if we'd lost this one, I think it really could have affected us, as a nation, emotionally or psychologically. And that's obviously a nod to the real world. Then there's it's suggested not only did he shoot JFK, now we know who did it, but that, Woodward and Bernstein, like, he helped cover up Watergate, etc., etc., etc. That alternate universe and that alternate Cold War. So Cold War that not only is exacerbated by Manhattan, but juxtaposing it with our universe, let's say our real world, where what would the Cold War have been like had things not happened the way they did? If Vietnam hadn't gone the way it did, if Nixon hadn't, gone the way he went, let's say, how much of a difference would there have been? And that alone would be fascinating. But then to layer in, okay, the American dream exists. We've gotten to a point now where we've got vigilantes. We've got these, hooded heroes, these caped heroes. Are they a good thing or a bad thing?
What happened to the American dream?
What happened to the American dream? It came true. You're looking at it.
Everything about this movie is asking you at one stage or another, was it a good or a bad thing that happened in this universe or in your universe? Is Rorschach an absolute animal? Because let's face it, anybody who thinks that Rorschach is a hero should probably get some counseling of some sort. He's got some serious issues, like serious issues. But it also shows him in a sympathetic light of, but people with issues, there's reasons behind it, and even good motives. His altruistic, or at least his pure motive, is as messed up as it is to actually punish people who've done wrong, to make sure that they don't do wrong to others. He wants to clean the streets up. He doesn't. His methods are awful, but it really is with this idea of he wants a world that he would no longer be appropriate for.
Never compromise. Not even in the face of Armageddon. That's always been the difference between us, Daniel.
Yeah. He's if you make a comparison of a character within another movie, he is the agent from Serenity. He's trying to make the good world that he will never see.
Yes,
kind of thing. He's a mixture of mixture of the Question, if you ever heard about him in DC, and the Punisher, essentially. But yeah, he's a like an interesting character in the overall kind of arc as well, because this is the kind of breeding ground for people like him who they're nicknamed masks, who are vigilantes and stuff like that. That this world that America has essentially succeeded in all its endeavors, that it keeps winning and stuff like that. It never has to hold back. That essentially, the world it keeps getting corrupt, and he's essentially the other side byproduct of that kind of thing. He is a paladin. I will say that he is his. He's one of those unmovable objects in his complete view of justice. He's a paladin. His same famous phrase being like, "Never back down, even in the what is it? Even in the eye of or in the sight of the apocalypse or something like that." Like he specifically is just like, never. I will never back down from the justice that I seek, even with the apocalypse being like, if I say anything, the apocalypse will happen. I'll say it because it's the truth.
Yeah, and it is that pure view, and that's where my personal favorite, as far as everybody's like, who's your favorite in Watchmen? For me, it's actually the comedian, because he's awful. He's the other kind of awful, and I find him a very interesting character because of that. Because you take Rorschach in one hand, take the comedian in the other, they both do bad things. They both do them under the guise of the same reason, but they really are both doing them for different reasons. And the evil that is shown in the comedian, as opposed to the misguided rage that's shown in Rorschach, is exemplified by their endings. It's that the comedian actually regrets his life in the end. He goes to his arch enemy crying, saying, you're scary thing is, you're the closest thing I have to a friend, and I've messed up and I've done so much wrong. And he's realized because he was terrible. Whereas, like you say, with Rorschach, he lost himself years ago and became this idea.
Yeah.
And that's why, even all the way to the end, he's like, no matter what the negative effect in the world of me going telling the truth right now would be, I have to do it. That's who I am. And they're fascinating to have them both side by side, have them play off each other, and then everything that's in between. The Dr. Manhattan and the other characters. So we shouldn't have started with character.
I know. No, I do want to go into one thing about comedian, because there is something really good about the comedian. I find that the majority of people who do not. So I have another thing, but the majority of the people who do not like the movie focus on the comedian.
Really?
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing, because I feel like they get Rorschach in the sense that he is an unrelenting kind of ideal, and a Night Owl is kind of that. Night Owl 2 is kind of like the as you said, Bruce Wayne kind of like, kind of a Batman kind of character kind of thing. People have a problem with the comedian, it would seem, and I have a real big problem with that, because the comedian is one of the most complex characters within this.
Yeah.
His whole name and talking and stuff like that is so contrary to his actual, like, and the way he acts is so contrary to his own beliefs. Like,
that's like I just said, he's the most interesting and my favorite for that. I didn't really realize that he was one of the lightning rods for people's misunderstanding of this movie.
Yeah, because people just say, why is he just so, like, I guess with Rorschach, they understand why he's so, like, awful. Like, he's a byproduct of his life, but he's also trying to do good. Whereas the comedian, it seems like he's just a bad person. And, like, one of the big things that I feel that people don't get is the comedian is essentially a mirror of human condition. He's the worst parts of the human like soul.
He's a commentary on so many parts of society too, from authoritarianism to oh my god, I can't even. I'll shut up now because I could go on for a week.
But that's the thing. He himself hates it.
Mm.
Like, you get that from him talking to his only friend being his arch enemy. Like, the fact is, he actually, like, the whole when what is it? Osmosis says, your name is the comedian, but I haven't heard you say a joke, or I haven't laughed once. And he says, watch me. And it's like, the whole point of him saying that, the whole reason that he's called the comedian is because he's literally showing he's trying to show everybody how awful humans can be. Like, he is literally a walking contradiction to like every, like, he's the Punisher if the Punisher hated what he was doing but knew he had to do it because it was the only way to show humanity the better way, better path. It's like, don't be like me.
There's a sadistic, cruel side to the comedian as well, and that's the thing. Like, he enjoys being awful sometimes. Also, it's the converse is also true, and that's why he's a complex character, because he's the only character in the whole movie. If anybody's not getting it, it's spelled out by the woman who ends up having his child and having a child with him. Was he attempted to sexually assault her, and she herself, in defense of this awful creature that is a mirror for so many things about society, says not everything is black and white. You know, not sometimes it's grimy and sometimes it's not. And he is that kind of he's exactly that contradiction, but he's also exactly that awful balance. And people who don't look at that character and go, my gosh, that's fascinating. Distasteful, yes. But how anybody would be able to actually watch this and go, oh, comedian, that was awful, that's so distasteful, and go, you were fine with Rorschach just because there's a few cool lines, you know. You don't get it. You're not trapped in. I'm not trapped in here with you. You're trapped in here with me. One of the great lines of all time. But the dude's got some serious issues. So how you could look at the comedian and be like, oh, that's distasteful, but the other guy, who's obviously, you know, disturbed, but is again, you know, more than just a disturbed person. I don't get it. It's the same as the other thing, Paul, if while we're bringing up characters that people don't get. Dr. Manhattan, how often is it boiled down to the big blue Todger? I don't know what word doesn't get us demonetized. So in the film there's a scene where Manhattan is nude, and it's in no way there's no comment to it. Obviously, there's no one going like, you know, why are you naked or anything like that. He's so detached from humanity, and also in his own home, that I do get that. But it feels like that's kind of a low, like a surface level gripe about the film, or just something that, you know, people just can't get over. I know somebody who watched it, and the first thing they said to me, I was like, "Finally, you watched The Watchmen. What'd you think?" "Oh, it's all about your man. Look at what do you think your man's big blue glowing ding dong?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay, but other than that, what was that all about?" I'm like, "Okay, well, it was just about that he doesn't need to wear clothes in that particular. But he was wearing clothes at a funeral. He wore a suit." Like, yeah, because he's aware of his surroundings. He just doesn't feel embarrassment the way you do. I think that was weird. Couldn't get over it. The film made no sense. What was the point in all this? I was all just crazy. And I'm like, whoa. With everything that goes on in this film, one blue wanger is what took you out of it. Again, my previous statement of unbelievable cruelty and violence from two of the other, main characters, and it was somebody's glowing wand that took you out of the movie.
Yeah, it's, as I said, it's a bit of a weird one, and I feel like it's just a surface level kind of thing that people just can't get past, which I have no idea. The other side of the thing is, I know a lot of people have a gripe of it being slow, and I feel like that is more on them than it is on others, because this is a noir type film. It's more about kind of discovering the plot of something, like you wouldn't say that Glass Onion or which is Murder on the Orient Express is slow. It's because it's meant to kind of have a slow reveal. You get to follow the characters as they slowly discover stuff, as the story unravels and stuff. But so, like, I feel like when they heard that it's a superhero movie, that they thought they were going to go into a kind of a punch and a kick kind of thing.
You're way ahead of me. They were waiting for the next action beat. They've been conditioned that this isn't. It's got superheroes in it, therefore it's an action film. Therefore, I'll get served up my action beats on the following cadence. It's acceptable in Act 2 to not have action for a little bit of extra time, because that's when we have to set up for Act 3. It's not a slow movie, by any actual measurable sense, it's not a slow movie, and that's including a sex scene in the clouds.
Yeah, like I find that that's always a gripe in which I think is more the fact that it's just it's a misconception of going into the movie and thinking that they're getting something else.
Yeah.
You know, I went into the movie thinking that Frozen was going to be about like something completely different, and I got princesses and stuff like that. So,
And you did well.
and that's
And you did
like
well.
yeah,
Let it
like,
go.
So it's
Let it snow.
yeah, let it go. So yeah, it's an interesting overall story with like the plot though. The plot is just something completely is completely, you know, interesting and complex as much as the characters are, which is just fantastic. Because even if you removed the characters from the plot that we got and replaced them with a bunch of others, the plot is still fantastic. You know, kind of thing. You could even scale it down from being planetary to just country, you know, kind of thing, and you still have a difficulty, or still have a fantastic plot going on.
Well, it's one of those movies that makes you ask yourself questions. It makes you ask yourself as a viewer questions, and that's when you know you've got something good on your hands. It's not just eliciting responses; it's eliciting thought and it's eliciting questioning, which is usually when you know something's doing a pretty good job of having a poke at society.
Yeah, like I think one of the most interesting questions that it asks is how far would you go to save humanity?
Exactly.
Is
And
one of the biggest questions.
It's how much wrong is worth the right. Is outcome more important than damage on the input end of things? It really is. It's asking the world's a messy place. The universe is a messy place. Where's the scale tip for you? What's too much of a bad thing to have good things happen? Or what amount of good will outweigh what amount of bad in whatever measurement you put on it?
Yeah, it's interesting that sentiment is also mirrored in two ways: the overall plot and the character Silk Spectre, like which is a great kind of ability to connect for the audience. We're able to connect with Silk Spectre in that sense of how much bad creates something good, and then in the plot line we get that as well, which is just fantastic.
I could go on about that all night too. So I'm not going. I'm just going to say, yeah. If it's sheerly down to, you know, plot, story, timeline, progression, any of those things that people have an issue, if they don't like the movie, I would always kind of ask them, well, was there something else that was taking you out of it? Because on its face, just written down, like you say, even if you made it smaller, even if you applied it to, you know, a different set of geographies, let's say, or a different scale, it'll still work, and it'll still be something. It'll be something that'll make you contemplate, if not for a long time, for at the very least a moment, on a few topics, on a few subjects. Everything that you can see in this movie at some point or another is leading up to making you ask yourself a few questions about what would you do? What do you think? How do you morally equivocate on these things?
Yeah, it's one of the interesting also things about this movie. It also splits people into people who agree with the sentiment of the ending, and people who disagree with it, in the sense of kind of, you know, would they have stood their ground, or would they have agreed to the ending, which also is remnants of like not to go on too much about it, but you've seen this kind of thing before, which is in Thanos and the MCU. This same question of, was Thanos right, but just was going about it in the wrong kind of way. Was he right to do the things that he did to save the universe, or would you have tried to stand with the Avengers against him? Kind of thing is an interesting. So, just to bring it in that we haven't, like, a lot of the questions that are asked in the Watchmen that people seem to have a problem with, you're asked in different ways and other stuff, and you still seem to have enjoyed those. So why not give Watchmen another chance? And under the guise of not being like, you know, a Captain America movie.
Yeah, well, the other things in the movie, to kind of talk about visuals, sound, editing, all those sorts of things, like it's a fantastic visual feast. It's wonderfully scored. and wonderfully soundtracked, I should even say, more than scored. I don't think I've heard too many people complain about those things because it'd be very, very soft ground to stand on. So, anybody who's watched this movie knows it looks brilliant. It looks fantastic. Mm-hmm. And, that montage, the Bob Dylan song, Times They Are Changing.
Yeah.
Cinematic gold right there. That's going up on the Mount Rushmore of good moves in movies forever. So it really does come back down to how much are you willing to accept that not all superhero movies are about superheroes, and are you willing to take this movie for what it is?
Yeah. So, I guess closing us up. Let us know down in the comments down below what you think of the Watchmen. Did you see the things that we saw? Or are we completely and utterly raving mad about this film being good and stuff? So please let us know what you think down in the comments down below. If you liked this kind of thing where we took a movie and we tried to kind of show why we liked it and stuff, but it seems to be kind of more universally kind of disliked, let us know down below. Would you like to see us do also a film that we actually hate but try to find the positives in it? That's also a nice one. But anything to add there? Or like, subscribe, ring that notification bell, share us out and everything like that.
Nothing more to add than that. I would love to hear from people, so really let us know all your thoughts down below, good, bad, or indifferent, because I'm sure we're going to have said stuff that you completely disagree with, even if you're a fan of the movie.
Yeah, agreed. So on that note, I've been Paul.
And I've been Patrick.
And we've been Heroes Out.
See you next time. Bye.